Deanna here. Welcome to Solar and Create. I'm glad you joined us today. And help us reach 5,000 subscribers by subscribing if you haven't done so already. And be sure you click that bell notification so you'll know when I upload a new video. Today's project, we're going to be making a lanyard. And most people today have to wear a lanyard with a key card or keys on their for their work. And these are great, fun projects and make great gifts. So let's get started. For the lanyard, you're going to need the following supplies. You're going to need an outer fabric and an inner fabric, and that fabric needs to be 2 inches wide by 34 inches long. You're going to need a D-clip with a clasp on it, and I got mine at Amazon. They're 1 inch, and that measurement is this measurement across the bottom. I got mine at Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description box that has that. You can get a big package of them, or you can go to your local craft store and just buy 1 or 2. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your fabrics and you're going to put them right sides together. So pretty side of the fabric to pretty side of the fabric. And you're going to clip it all the way down on the long sides. You're going to leave the top open and the bottom open. So when you're clipping it, you can use pins, but I like these Wonder Clips because they're really easy. And you want to clip both sides. And the reason for that is so that you're stitching this long of a seam, it'll have a tendency, if it's not clipped or pinned, to crawl on you. And so I like to clip it all the way down. I'm going to finish clipping and then I'll meet you at the machine. Now we're at the machine. We're going to stitch down both sides, and I'm going to line up my fabric with the outside edge of my presser foot and use that as a guide. And this is a great beginner project because you're making such a long seam. It's a great way to practice those long seams. I'm going to take off that first clip just so I've got room. I always like to start with my needle down so that my fabric is already grabbed when I start stitching. Then as you come to them, you're just going to take your clips off. And you're going to go all the way down. Making sure you're keeping that fabric lined up with the edge of your foot. When I get to the end, I'm going to go all the way off that edge because I'm going to leave this part open. Do a little back stitch, and that side is done. I'm going to do the other side the same way. I'm just going to stitch all the way down, and then I'll meet you at the mat. Now we've stitched down both long edges, as you can see, and we've left both ends completely open. And that is so we can turn our lanyard right side out. I like to use a large safety pin. I have some of these old diaper pins that work really well because they have the nice closure at the top. So you open up your safety pin. And what you want to do is you want to insert it into one of your ends through one side of your fabric only. Close it. And then you're going to take that safety pin and you're going to put it inside, and you're going to use this kind of like a needle. So I'm going to push my fabric down onto that safety pin, kind of inchworm it up, and then you're going to pull it out at the back. And that will begin to turn your fabric right side out. So just inch it down, pull it out at the back, and keep going. They do make tools that you can use to turn things like this, but I've found that the safety pin works just as well and is a little easier. Almost everybody has one. A large safety pin does work better than a small one. So when you get to the other end, then you just keep pulling until it turns right side out. The next thing you're going to do is anytime you are sewing something, the more times you press it as you go from step to step, the better it is, the nicer it turns out. So our next step is going to be to take your seams and roll them in your fingers, and that will flatten them. And you're going to do that all the way down your tube, and then you're going to press it, because I want those seams as flat as possible, because what I'm going to do after that is come back and top stitch these two pieces together, and that'll give us a nice finished clean edge. So the flatter those seams lay, the easier it is. So you're just going to roll it in between your fingers, and that kind of flattens them out, and then you're going to press it. So I'm going to finish rolling and pressing my long tube, and I'll meet you back at the machine. Now we're going to top stitch down both sides of our lanyard, and this keeps the fabric from over time turning on you and the seams popping around to the front. When you're doing a top stitch, you want it to be a fairly narrow stitch, so I'm going to use the inside edge of my foot as my guide and stitch down both sides. When I'm doing a piece where I'm starting right at the edge of it, I like to roll my needle down, but I also like to grab my thread tails, and I can use that to give it just a little bit of a tug when I'm starting, and it helps it get started easier. And I'm keeping my edge of my fabric right in that narrow edge of my foot. I'm going to go all the way down. When I come to the end, just like I did when I stitched it together, I'm going to go all the way off that edge and then turn around and do the other side. So that edge is done, and you can see that top stitching is very narrow, and then it'll have a stitch line on this side. I'm going to stitch the other side, and I'll meet you back in just a minute. Now we're ready to add our D-ring clasp holder. So what you want to do is you want to decide which fabric you want on your outside and which you want to be your lining fabric. Because you're going to turn your outside fabric, I'm going to use this flower fabric as my outside. You're going to turn it inside to begin with. So now my outer fabric is turned inside. I'm going to slide my D-ring on and just push it out of the way for the moment. And we're going to stitch the two ends together across here, and then we're going to put our D-ring in place, flip it, and stitch across again so that it's nice and secure. So we're going to put our two ends together with our outer fabric turned inside to begin with, and our D-ring is on our lanyard. So we're going to put it, I'm going to stitch across. And before I go all the way off the edge, I'm going to put my needle down, I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to go right back over that stitching. And what that does is it makes these ends nice and secure. I'm going to do a little bit of a back stitch on the other side and pull it out. I like to clip my threads as I go along because that keeps everything out of my way. Now my D-ring, is at the other end. I'm going to pull it back up to the end where it's going to be. I'm going to put it in place. I'm going to open up that seam, just kind of press it down with my fingers, and I'm going to put the flat part of that D-ring in that seam. Then I'm going to turn my right side, or the part I want on the outside, out. Just make sure when you do that that your other end is straight and not twisted. So I'm going to put it there. I'm going to add a clip on one side to kind of hold it in place. And when you stitch, you're going to stitch. You can feel the metal piece in there. You want to make sure that your needle is not close to that, or it will break your needle. So I'm going to just put my presser foot to where it is right up next to that bar, so I know my needle is at least 1/4 inch away. I'm going to start with my needle down in my fabric, and then I can remove this clip. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stitch across, I'm going to turn it, and then go back across again. So before I get to the edge, I'm going to stop and put my needle down, lift my presser foot, turn the lanyard around, and I'm going to go right back over that stitching to make it extra secure. I'm going to do a little bit of a back stitch on that edge too. And then I'm going to do a back stitch here, and that should make our lanyard secure, because this is the end of your lanyard that is going to get the most stress when you hang your keys or your ID card or whatever you're going to have at the end of your lanyard. And now our lanyard is complete. I hope you liked today's project, the lanyard. And if you want more ideas of things that I've done in the past, be sure you check out my blog, Pink Lemonade Ideas. A link will be in the description box. See you in the next one.